have this is called an uncapping tank. So you take a frame like that with all the honey on it, and you would take the top little layer of wax off the frame on both sides. So that top capping wax, which is that white stuff, falls down into this tub, which has a screen, so any honey that's on there drips on down in the bottom. And then you'll take this frame, and there's also a little scratcher here, because you want to get all the cells open, because if you leave any cell closed, the honey's not going to come out. And then we put it in this machine here, which is called an extractor. Well, there's a couple different ways I showed you the other night. There's a roller that will open up the cells like that, which I don't care for at all. And here's a hot knife that's heated electrically, which some people use that. Some people said that will scorch your honey and stuff too. So I've just been using a serrated knife. You can use like a bread knife or something else. And then these frames fit down in here like this. This has a lot of the propolis on it. And if you want to grab me a couple more frames up here. This extractor will hold 6 frames like this at a time. So it's just kind of a sticky process time you get the wax off.
And all the time you're trying to do this, it's running out of the frames.
Does
everywhere.
any of the wax matter, or is there a filter to
Take out the cap.
There's a filter right over here. Here's that game the guys were talking about. You want to make sure this is open, because when that starts spinning, there's a filter like that, catches any wax, any bee parts or wings or legs or anything like that. And then you turn this on, and let the honey starts coming out. Comes out to the sides of the can and goes down the sides, and will come out the bottom there. So this will hold 6 frames this size, or it can hold, if you're using the deep frames, it will hold 3 of them.
How long does this take?
As long as you want it. We'll put the lid on, put it off. You can see it this way.
Honey doesn't fly out though.
But of course, there's the signs on it, you know, make sure you got the lids on and everything else.
Some of them have a safety switch on them. If you don't, like, if you, the lid flaps up on both sides, if you don't put both of them down, it won't spin. But not all of them have the safety switch.
While it's spinning, it's flinging out the honey, and a lot of it depends on the temperature of the room when it's happening. And it's landing on the sides here in little droplets, and then ultimately running down and coming out there.
Another thing, when the bees make the wax cells on here, they don't go straight in. They're about a 15-degree angle, so that kind of holds the nectar in as they're putting the honey in and stuff too. So you want the frames in like this, so it flings it out.
Did somebody say they rented one of these the first time? Do you rent one?
The club has one that you can go and use. I was gonna say borrow, but you can't take it. But you go up to Orange City, and there's a guy that's got a setup where you can
There's a
extract and use his
house
extractor.
set up there that's separate from from the farm.
What does one of these cost?
That was asked last night
a
at
lot of
the
money.
Sioux Center
Yeah.
meeting. This was
They can be
$900
expensive.
9 years ago.
Okay.
So
But I provide the service too, because John and David both come to my place before, and a couple other people do, and new beekeepers come and use it for nothing. And after you want to decide to buy your own, or I charge $1 a frame for some people, and it's like, I got 2 boxes, $20, you know, I'll do that instead of have to put the money into it.
What does a typical beekeeper do to extract their honey?
probably borrows from somebody, or
There's
if,
no other way to do it but this.
no,
Oh,
that's
you can
not
take
true.
the frames and you can just scrape all this wax off and crush it up.
Oh, and then you wreck the frame kind of though, huh?
So
Yeah,
they,
and-
the bees would have to rebuild all of that, especially if you're using the plastic foundation. So you can scrape down to the plastic foundation. You could scrape it into something like this. The wax is gonna stay above the screen and the honey's gonna go down to the bottom. This
This
has
has
got
a-
a bottling gate on the bottom too.
So all the honey will come
So
out.
your honey can come out there, so you could do that. You could actually, you know, if you've got 1 or 2 frames that you wanna do it to, you know, you just wanna say, I got some honey in my first year, you could use, what you would strain spaghetti with, and you could accomplish it very cheap.
Yeah, you do
Colander,
that.
thank
And
you.
there's a manual version.
Cheesecloth, yeah.
Is the cleanup absolutely horrible?
It
Sticky?
Yes.
Okay.
It depends. I usually let mine sit. I got this, I can use it anytime I want. You know, if I wanna do 1 box, I can. Most people, this is the weekend we're gonna do it, and we do all the honey at one time.
Yeah.
I do have a 20 frame extractor in my basement too that I use, which, you know, do 2 boxes worth at a time, 10, 15 minutes. About the time it's running, we're taking the wax cappings off the next frames that's gonna go in there.
We block out the entire day. We usually gather a dozen or so supers, and then on a big table like this, just lay it out and do exactly this and right into there, and then, do it all in one day, and then you have just one cleanup session.
And me, I've been doing it this last year, it's like, I'll go out and do 2 boxes, bring in, cause I'm carrying them down my basement, which hopefully I'm building a shed with all this stuff in the outside. Instead of the 14 steps down and 14 steps back up every time you're carrying a box or a bucket or something. But, it's all a process, but then I got a hot water faucet on the outside of my house too, so when I'm done with this, I'll just take it out, set it out on my picnic table, lay it over, leave it out there for a couple days. The bees that are around come and clean out all the honey.
And could you do this outside?
All the bees that are around that wanna come suck that honey out,
I'd
they're
say
gonna be
no.
right there when you're doing it.
You need to do this operation in an enclosed,
That's good.
even if it's a garage. I do it in a garage. We have experience of doing this outside.
Didn't work out too good, did it?
So I did not.
Yeah, and he doesn't have 4 pallets of bees next door like you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was wondering.
That's something that you'll
That's
wanna be
small
careful
times,
of.
you know, a lot, probably.
Yeah, even opening up your hives, you won't wanna leave the covers off for too long because there's so many bees, 400 yards from your house that will find your
Oh,
hives.
geez.
Yeah,
So a good thing to have with something like that, even if you're working on stuff, have an old dish towel or something like that to throw over your frames if you got something open.
oh yeah.
The bees don't come in and bother quite so much.
So if you've got an area in your basement where you could set up like a small extractor in this tank and leave it, there's no reason you'd have to clean it up. Like every time you've done extracting a few frames. Like Dean, you leave your extractors and stuff set up in the basement for a few weeks, right?
Yeah. I got
One-
like 3, 4 people who come
Yeah,
and do it, you know.
it's not like the honey's gonna spoil. I mean, you know, if you have trouble with ants, it might be an issue, or you might start having a trouble with ants, but you know, you don't have to clean it up after every single time.
And the professor up at Sioux Center is doing, we just finished up with class up there, just like this last night. And he's one that, he's got his honey in there. He doesn't want anybody else's honey that might have whatever else in it in his
Sure.
equipment.
Mm.
I don't care myself. I don't concern myself with that. But, you know, then I got some of John's honey or some of Dave's honey mixed in with this.
Yeah, if you look down in the bottom of that, you know, even with the gate all the way open, there's at least, I don't know, 2 quarts, 3 quarts of honey sitting
So
around there, so the next
you
guy
end up
is, yeah.
taking it like that and getting it all tipped out, except you run a machine like this and it's out of balance, it's gonna walk around like a horse machine, out of balance. I got
Yeah,
mine screwed down
I
to the
noticed
floor,
most of them
you
have
know, otherwise
really
it'll
crappy
dance.
legs.
When we first started, I think we had it up at Dan Lansness, and there was 2 of us Two of us just like this trying to hold it from
We don't do that. Mine's bolted to a concrete floor.
So, what do you do with the frames after they're done? This is what I do. I'll take this box with the frames in it. Just like this one, you know, they're all still wet and stuff like that. And I take them out and set it like that out on my utility trailer away from the house and stuff.
And
then
away from the
beams-
other hives.
Away from other hives either.
What do you say?
Away from the hives.
You wouldn't wanna put them right in front of another
I
hive.
got mine like from here to the end of the side of the
Yeah.
parking lot. And then bees come and they get in there and suck all the honey out of all those cells and all those frames, so that's what that ends up like.
Is there other options?
Yeah. You can put them back on your hive,
Wet?
Yeah.
and some people store them wet. Have a place that's enclosed that next spring, the bees will like that better because they still got that little bit of sticky honey in it.
So why do you set the box like that?
That gives the bees that go in there and wanna start fighting with each other from the other 6 hives that are around there, they have different directions that they can get in and out. It isn't like they're trapped down into the box or something.
You'll end up with fewer dead bees by doing it that way as opposed to stacking them like a normal hive. Yep. And you can definitely put them back on another colony and they'll clean them up and they'll take that honey down into the brood nest and store it. So yeah, that's one way to clean them up.
The
What-
thing you deal with too is sometimes those frames aren't completely full and capped like this one is. So you have to deal with that also. You know, if they're only partially capped, is it too wet? You know,
The moisture content of the honey.
And you test it after you get it all out, or can you test it before you mess with it? Or you can do both.
You wanna test it when you have a nice average.
well, and that's just it. So here's your frame of honey you pulled out here. And it isn't all capped or something, you know, you test this spot, well, what's that mean on this side here, down in the box? You gotta play that game of averages, I
Can you
guess.
just cut the uncapped stuff out?
Heard me?
Can you cut the uncapped stuff out?
Well,
And not
it's
risk
good
it?
honey that's in there.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I see.
And you have to measure
It's an
the,
average.
mentally just measure the average.
I see.
If you've got a third of that frame that's just nectar, and the rest of it's capped, not a problem. It's not a
But
problem.
if you got a whole box that's not capped yet, what do you do? Leave it on for another couple weeks or something? Or put it in a freezer?
Depends on where it is and when.
That's why sometimes I'll go out and go through and I'll pull the fully capped frames like this out, and then instead of having 3 boxes on here, I'm down to 2, cause they got, this is all capped, I know it's good. I'll leave that other one that's partially done, you know, for another week or 2.
I see.
Yeah, you don't
In my
have to.
case, I have these 2, and then I leave another super here, so I can take those partial frames and put them in that super.
And with my number of hives too, I'll pull all the good ones off. I got one dedicated one I'm gonna put all these partial ones into, so I only have one to deal with instead of, you know, 2 or 3, do I have to check this one and that one? Pretty soon I got all the supers off and just one hive with some that you have to play around with.
How many hives do you typically have?
Well, I got 8 right at home, so I can do that. But with 20 hives, I don't wanna go out, especially I'm doing it by myself, I don't wanna pull off, 60 boxes of honey to work on. Like I say, I do a couple now and do a couple more tomorrow or something.
Now, Dean, do you ever go into the deep boxes?
For,
You ever extract
no,
honey from the deep boxes?
I don't.
How do you clean up the rest of the equipment besides the boxes?
Well, you'll have a bunch of wax in here too, from all your cappings. I got some big plastic totes, like you put stuff in under the bed or something, they're kinda shallow. I'll put all that wax in, set it out just like that. The bees will be there and clean all that up, and you almost have a white powder at the end. And then that's the wax process you'll work with later.
You keep that wax?
Yes.
what's left over.
Capping's wax is good for lip balm and things like that. It's
Candles.
the purest. You know, it's brand new every year as opposed to the other frame wax, you know, it gets older and older, but the capping's wax, it's brand new because we cut it off every year and they have to redo it.
I do have on the hive that I brought a couple other tools. This is a robbing screen, and this is a mouse guard that I put on in the winter time. So that just kind of screws down so you can't get any mice in the hive. If you have bees wanting to rob from your hive or other hives, put something like this on.
Did Jim sell me the goofed up bottom board? You can't get that to fit on?
Well, mine are all, some of mine are trimmed and some aren't.
Ah, so I
But
have to
this
blame
is
you.
open, so the bees can get in and out. If all of a sudden you got bees trying to rob the honey out of here, you can close all this off, so the bees are gonna try to get into the screen. They can't, but the ones that are inside figure out they can come out this little hole and go in and out. So I've got those I use once in a while.
So the robbing bees, the bees that aren't from that hive, are trying to locate that entrance based on smell. And it smells like it's down there because it's coming out through the screen. The bees that live there, they had to come out and go up and out that little hole, so they know where the entrance is at. They're not finding it based on smell. So that's one of the ways that the robbing screen works.
Can you just leave that on all year?
You can leave it on all year. Some of mine I leave on, I put on early August and leave them on till spring. Because the other time that robbing can start is when we have a few warm days and there's no nectar out there and the bees are all flying, there's nothing for them to do. They will find a weak hive that's just getting through winter, and so yeah, sometimes I leave mine on until
In
May.
this case with this gap here, this gap would be enough that there would be neighboring bees on this box. Because the smell of honey coming out that
Yep.
slit.
They can't get through that
They can't
size,
get through
but they
it.
can smell honey through that.
Yep.
Yep.
You wanna come in here? There's some samples of honey, and here's the